Good morning. Thank you all for joining us this morning to celebrate Johnson County's participation in the National Stepping Up Initiative. There are a couple of special guests I'd like to note their presence this morning. Sally Clark, who's the first vice president of the National Association of Counties. Sally will have a few remarks later. Cindy Bobbitt, who is commissioner from Grant County, Oklahoma, and Cindy is the Central Regional Director for the National Association of Counties. Also, a couple of staff members, Megan Gilmore and Nastasia Walsh, are present. We appreciate very much the participation of the National Association of Counties, officers, as well as personnel as we celebrate this special activity today. This is truly an honor for Johnson County. We were chosen as one of only 4 launch sites in the nation for this effort, along with Washington, D.C., Miami-Dade County, Florida, and Sacramento, California. That's quite an impressive group. The Stepping Up initiative is aimed at reducing the number of people with mental illness in our jails. Johnson County has already taken several steps toward that goal. We are looking forward to doing more. Without the appropriate treatment and services, people with mental illnesses will continue to cycle through the criminal justice system, which often results in tragic outcomes. And through the Stepping Up initiative and our many partners, the National Association of Counties, the Council of State Governments Justice Center, and the American Psychiatric Foundation, we will work together to improve the outcome for those individuals who otherwise might not have a chance to get the help that they need. I'm proud that last week the Johnson County Board of Commissioners presented a proclamation, a call to action, to take a number of additional actions to reduce the number of people with mental illnesses in our county jail. As part of our commitment to the Stepping Up initiative and the individuals with mental illness who need our help in Johnson County, we will be calling upon county and state leaders from a variety of agencies to help us to address the challenge. We will be looking at available treatment and service capacity and policy and funding barriers, as well as collecting vital information to make better informed decisions. Ultimately, we will need to commit to a plan with measurable outcomes and implement research-based approaches to advance our plan. We will ask participants to track their progress and report successes. I'm quite certain that together we can make a significant difference in this effort in the months and years to come. We do have several speakers this morning. It is my pleasure to introduce former State Representative Pat Colleton, who is the Council of State Governments Board Member at Large, and I believe in 2013 she was appointed Assistant Attorney General for the state of Kansas. Pat has been very active in supporting and initiating efforts to bring us to this point today. Pat Colleton.
Yes, I am Assistant Attorney General Pat Colleton, but I am appearing here today as the past chairman of the board and a current board member of the Council of State Governments Justice Center. The Council of State Government Justice Center is committed to developing criminal justice policy across the United States that is bipartisan, really nonpartisan, that is consensus-based, where we have all 3 branches of government participating and agreeing to the initiatives, and which is practical and effective. We've had a long history of working with Kansas and Johnson County. In Kansas, the Justice Center worked with the state, and we were the first state in the nation to adopt the Second Chance Act. In Johnson County, under the leadership of the Johnson County Commissioners and the Johnson County Criminal Advisory Council, we became one of 2 pilot programs for the mentally ill co-responder model. That mentally ill co-responder model was directed by the Council on Criminal Advisory Council, but under the direction of our very able leader, Risa Hannenberg. Risa, as you may know, has retired but has joined the Justice Center and is now part of this new exciting initiative with NACO, with the American Psychiatric Foundation, and of course with our longtime partner, NAMI. NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, of course has always been involved in many of these efforts. That pilot program that Johnson County undertook a number of years ago, several years ago, became a national model for embedding community mental health people with police on calls that are run through the dispatch system. We did this with the Olathe Police Department. It was very successful, is now a national model that is followed. The Justice Center is very honored and very pleased to be working again with Johnson County, the Criminal Justice Advisory Council, the county commissioners, the chair of our county commissioner, Ed Eilert, and our sheriff, Frank Denning, both of whom have been tremendous leaders in us having a real model that we have started to develop in mental health care for those who are incarcerated. So the Justice Center, NACO, the American Psychiatric Foundation, and NAMI are all very, very pleased that Johnson County again will help set the standard for counties across the United States on how best, what is best practice, what are some of the options of dealing with the many, many mentally ill persons who are incarcerated for very minor infractions and who are not receiving the support they deserve. With that, again, thank you so much, and again, the Justice Center is so honored to be working with Johnson County again.
Pat, thank you very much. Not only in her official capacity, but Pat has been a strong volunteer on many of our justice initiatives, and she, as well as many other individuals who served on our advisory boards, our mental health board, we appreciate all of their input and their commitment of time and energy to this effort. And I want to introduce a gentleman who served on our mental health board for 24 years. Howard Snyder exemplifies the kind of commitment, interest, and support that we have in this county for efforts such as what we're celebrating today. So Howard, would you like to make a few comments?
Good morning. My wife and I are lay persons. We have no professional training. What we did have was a son that had paranoid schizophrenia for 27 years. And because of that, we had ended up having about 35 years of street experience in mental health issues. And we have learned a lot in that time. Our son was a very bright boy. He was named top freshman at the University of Arizona in the School of Geology. He was an Eagle Scout. He was fluent in French and had spent some time in France as an exchange student. He came down with schizophrenia at age 19, could not finish his work, could not finish his schooling. We had three barriers to getting him help. One was his absolute refusal to accept treatment. Second was, in the late 70s, is the time we're talking about, there was very little treatment available. There were small pieces of treatment all over the state, but no organized treatment system existed. The third problem was the commitment law that was in effect at that time. It said dangerous to self or others with no definition of what dangerous means. Is it just before the knife goes in or just after? We had a judge at that time that wanted to see a bloody knife or a smoking gun before he would commit. So our son didn't get the treatment that he needed. It took us 10 years to get him into a treatment system. And in that time, he was on the streets and living the life of a street person. And we were living the life of a family trying to figure out what in the world was going on. Our therapy during that period of time was to go to work to try to help build a system that would be good for him and good for folks like him. We had learned fairly quickly that the mental health center was building a family support group. So we joined and helped get it started. We got going for a while, and we got a request from the state mental health center system asking us to testify to the legislature about the need for some funds. So we made a deal. The deal was, we will testify if the funds occur, they need to go to the folks that we are interested in. And as a matter of fact, that did happen. But what we learned at that time was the legislature was a very rural legislature, and we found out we needed a rural voice, because when we talked about Johnson County, a lot of them didn't want to listen. So we decided we needed to build some additional rural voice. So we, in our spare time, my wife and I traveled the state and helped start 20 family support groups and a statewide organization headquartered in Topeka that still exists today, and several of those groups still exist. The families were able to put a lot of pressure on, and systems started developing. The other problem, the law, we decided we needed to help there somehow. So we talked with the state, and we helped put together a team of people, including 2 legislators, a lawyer from what was then SRS, and some other folks, and we sat down and rewrote the commitment law. Took 4 years to get that through, but it did pass, and the language was likely to cause harm to self or others. And there was including a definition of what mental illness is all about. The law finally passed, and with that, we were finally able to get our son into treatment. And he was at Osawatomie State Hospital for 1.5 years. When he went in, he'd been on the streets for a lot of years, and it was very flat emotionally. He looked in his eyes, and nobody was home. But in the year that he was in Osawatomie, they brought him back. So he came out and had basically 15 years to the end of his life. He passed away at 46 from an serious acid reflux problem. But anyway, he had 15 relatively good years, still was disabled. He couldn't drive, never married, and but he went to KU, and he lived in Lawrence, and he audited KU classes for about 15 years, and he loved to learn. He'd come home and tell us some of the graduate courses he was learning, and the stuff went over here, and we'd say, Howie, that's great, keep at it. Anyway, he did pass away, but we decided to stay in it. We got tied into the issue, and it became our passion. And so about shortly after that, then I joined the Mental Health Center board. And when I joined in 1988, the budget was about $4 million. And that was a lot of growth from the time my wife and I first started attending board meetings of the Mental Health Center in 1982. Somebody told me today that the budget about that time was about $80,000. When I retired from the Mental Health Center Board at the end of 2011, the budget was 30 million. So it had grown 7.5 times in that period. And it has provided wonderful services for folks. It keeps folks from being in jail, being on the streets. I really feel that my years with the Mental Health Center were well worthwhile for me and for my wife. And by the way, she was on the board of the Osawatomie State Hospital for about 15 years. And so we're still working in it. You'll hear more about this t-shirt today. I've been involved with the CIT program since 2006 and found it to be one of the best programs ever to come along. And very successful, and it's one that needs as much help as it can get. So I think that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Well, Howard, thank you very much for sharing that personal experience with us. That's just one story. There are thousands of other stories out there, and underscore the importance of what we're about today and the possibilities for the future. Next, I'd like to introduce Johnson County Sheriff Frank Denning. Frank was first elected sheriff in 2004, re-elected in 2008 and 2012, and is an important component of what we're about today. Frank, Sheriff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, we are brought together on this issue, and we're from all disciplines. We're from all walks of life here today. As your sheriff, I can tell you that for the last 3-4 decades, I've been running the largest mental health hospital in the state of Kansas. When people are in crisis, when their lives are stormy, and we have no resources available to law enforcement, we seek that port in the storm, and that is jail. And that's where so many are today. For Johnson County, for example, probably closer to 20% today that are incarcerated are mentally ill, diagnosed mentally ill. I've had parents tell me, I really hate to see my daughter or son incarcerated, but there is no other place that I can get them the necessary help that they need. And I know when they're incarcerated that they will be getting the necessary treatment and meds in order to try to restabilize them as they go through the criminal justice system. This is wrong. Most of them, as was already mentioned, are there for very non-serious type violations, but there is no other port. So I guess what's really important for me here today is that on this initiative, some of the people that you're hearing today, but there are so many more that are in the audience here today and that are not even here today that have played critical roles in getting Johnson County, and we partner with Wyandotte County in one facility there now called RSI, the former Rainbow Clinic. It is so critical to begin to have some of these same facilities sprout in different parts of the state of Kansas. That's going to provide the necessary port, if you will, for these people who are in crisis. It would be remiss of me to not thank all of those that I see in front of me today, and I'll miss somebody. But had it not been for the leadership of the Board of County Commissioners led by Mr. Eilert, had it not been for the leadership of county management, thanks to Mr. Zacharias, had it not been for the leadership of former Representative Pat Colleton, who I have the highest regard for because we have taken this on head on for over 10 years, and for the hard work of Tim DeWeese and some others in here, and I've got to mention Risa again, for all the hard work that you've done, and we've had some challenges, and we've had a little bit of rocky road to get where we are, but I can tell you this with all sincerity. This is working. We have a lot more to do yet, but we have the support of not only elected officials, but those of you who are serving in other parts of whether it's county government or whatever you're doing in your place in life. Because I will say this, and you've already heard a couple of stories. Mental illness touches each and every one of us. It's similar to cancer in this regard. If you will look at your own family, or if you will look at some of your close relatives, you will be able to identify whether they're being treated or not that suffer from a mental illness. Most are fortunate in this regard. They have the ability and the means and the support, family support, to get the necessary treatment in the appropriate facility. But there are so many who don't. And what occurs when they don't have that support and they've lost ties with family because of the behavior, they end up in our jails and they end up in our criminal justice system. And most, when they're released, revert to the only thing they know, and that's the street, and that's homelessness. I'll share a personal story. I'm the second oldest of 9, by the way, large family, South Central Kansas kid. I have a brother who was college educated, was a registered nurse, and worked in the field of anesthesiology with a surgeon. He had an alcohol addiction. That addiction went untreated, and he developed an addiction for pharmaceuticals. That went on for several years, and he was homeless on the streets of Dallas for over 10 years. Refused help, as we've heard. There was no port in the storm. And 2 years ago, last week, he killed himself. So I am passionate about this. It does hit a personal note, but it hits a personal note for a lot of you. And so programs like CIT, things that we're doing in law enforcement, helping out on the street, getting the education, getting more tools in order to react with this community, with the mentally ill, versus taking the road to jail. It is so critical. We're not talking necessarily about the costs, but we have to. And we have to talk about funding because we have to. And it seems to me that when we're all adjusting budgets, one of the first places to take a cut or to take a hit is mental health. And we've got to turn this around. And we working with Pat and several others over the years, and just a couple of years ago or a year ago, where we got bipartisan help from Topeka, where we were able to refine and what I call save the port, which is now known as RSI in Wyandotte County. And it's a good program, and those things need to continue, and we need to find additional resources that we can continue to sprout a couple of more of those smaller places like that where we have a place to go with the mentally ill that we encounter on a fairly frequent basis. I can't stress the importance enough that when the mentally ill are incarcerated, the average stay in the jail in Johnson County is about anywhere from 72 hours to about 7-8 days. The average stay for a person who's mentally ill, so they can be treated and be ready to go to court, is about 72 days. That's at a cost of $160 a day per inmate. And remember, I said 20%, and this morning we're holding close to 700. So we can do the math. So it is a critical issue that I think Johnson County has led the way, stepping out front with not only this initiative, but the planning and the hard work that got us where we are here today. And it's because people like yourselves who have taken the lead from the front. Thank you.
Sheriff Denny, thank you for those words, and thank you for your support. Without that support, our program would be much less than it is today. Thursday morning, we presented a proclamation recognizing the city of Olathe and the city of Overland Park and the police chiefs from those two jurisdictions for their support of our co-responder program. To give you an idea, if memory is correct, I asked the question of what kind of outcomes has been brought about with the ability to have a professional therapist respond to some of these calls. And the number was something like 900, out of 900 calls, less than 2% resulted in that individual moving into the criminal justice system. Now, if you can think for just a minute, without that co-responder opportunity, how many more undeservedly would be in the criminal justice system? It is a very effective program. You know, the Johnson County Mental Health Department sees something like about 10,000 clients a year. And I think it's an activity that many people are not that aware of. Our director of that program, Mr. Tim DeWeese, is here today. Tim, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My name's Tim DeWeese, and I'm the Director of Mental Health for Johnson County. I first want to say how proud I am to live and work in a community that is committed to serving those individuals with severe mental illness. Counties face the significant challenges in identifying and addressing mental health and substance abuse needs of individuals in our jails. In Johnson County, we strive to be a different form of government, one that works together, one that collaborates, one that tries to achieve high performance, and doesn't necessarily focus on competing for resources, but comes together in serving our citizens of our community. Whether it's the sheriff, or court services, or our DA in our pretrial diversion program, or our director of corrections, both on the juvenile and adult side, or whether it's our local law enforcement doing CIT training or co-responder work. We're all looking and trying to identify individuals that we can intercept at different points in the criminal justice system to be able to provide them the services that they actually need. We are excited to join other counties across the nation in doing more than just bringing awareness to this issue, but taking action. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Sally Clark. Sally is first vice chair of the National Association of Counties. She is also a commissioner from El Paso County, Colorado. She was elected to that position in 2004, re-elected in 2008, and again in 2012. And at our conference in July of this year, she will become the chair of the National Association of Counties. Sally, thank you for being here. We're glad to have your support and the support of NACO in this effort.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the personal stories that were told today too. I think it hits us all personally, and those of us who are in elected office who manage the budgets have to figure out a different way to do things. Sheriff Denning, thank you also for your support of this. You know, county government operates kind of in silos. In fact, government operates in silos, and breaking down those silos is what makes it successful. I'm a county commissioner from El Paso County, Colorado, which is the Colorado Springs area, and incoming president for NACO. I want to thank Cindy Bobbitt as well for being here as our Central Region rep. But here in Johnson County, you have been extremely involved and engaged in NACO. I became a member of the Justice and Public Safety Committee, the steering committee, in 2005 when I first became a county commissioner. And I've learned so much through the years, but I have learned also that Johnson County has always been there to listen and learn and bring new ideas, not only to the table, but back from those NACO conferences. You know, many people don't know this, but counties spend $70 billion a year on our jail systems. $70 billion a year. And if you think about it, the prison system houses about 2 to 3 million inmates a year. We house over 11 million inmates who come through our county jails every year. That's the burden that's placed on local government. And I think the sheriff said it well when he was talking about how we have to work together on these, because these kinds of issues, the Board of County Commissioners have to approve those budgets. But each year, 2 million adults with serious mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and major depression are admitted to our jail system. We are the safety net. We're where everyone goes when they're having their worst day. And whether that is needing food assistance or needing mental health counseling or having the worst day of their lives when they're arrested on a crime, that's where they end up, is in local government. And it's not a system that necessarily works well together, but we are forced to do that. And law enforcement, our first responders, from the homeless issues that we deal with in our local communities, it's all interrelated. The additional time and the resources that we devote to mental health needs who come in contact with our justice system result in strained county budgets and burden taxpayers. So how do we figure out how to deal with the human side and at the same time the budget side? I work a lot in the human services arena, looking to reduce child abuse and neglect, and one of the analogies I like to use is babies are floating down this river and people keep pulling them out so they won't drown. And finally somebody says, shouldn't we go upriver and see how these babies are getting in the river? We have to go upstream to find out how to prevent what's happening. We have already stepped up, and Johnson County is at the forefront of that. And hearing those folks here talk about what great jobs you've done is just amazing, and the personal stories that we all share. I can think of one of my cousins who committed suicide when I was a young girl and didn't really think about it at the time, but then hearing Sheriff Denning talk and Mr. Snyder about those folks that are struggling every day puts kind of a personal face on it for me as well. I have a judge locally who started a mental health court, and she got some resistance from different folks in law enforcement. But I want to just quickly tell you a little bit about one of her participants. She gave me this story, and we've worked a lot on pretrial issues. Her name is Judge Deb Gross in the 4th Judicial District. Participant number 1 had a criminal history dating back to the 80s and diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He was not consistently taking his medications. He continued to reoffend. He was angry, and he came to us in April of 2014. New charges, not on meds, clearly mentally ill. Graduated from the program in April of 2015, stable, has his own home, reunited with his family, has a mess of grandchildren that he spends time with and helps to care for, receiving SSDI, has not been reincarcerated since he came to us in April of 2014, clearly healthy enough to work now, and applying for a job in the mines in Cripple Creek, where he used to work as a young man. Very positive attitude, and will be a mentor to others in the program. Those are the kinds of folks that we want to stop that revolving door of recidivism. We want to be able to help them, because we don't have an unlimited amount of money in our county budgets. I want to thank the Council of State Governments, Justice Center, and the American Psychiatric Foundation for their partnership on this issue and their interest in working with counties on this national effort. And to the U.S. Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance for their support in the initiative. Counties across the country have started to step up, And I will tell you that we're first here in Johnson County with National Association of Counties. We'll be holding another press conference today in Washington, D.C. One will be going on in Sacramento, California, where our president, Ricky Hokama, will be. Miami-Dade County, which has done some amazing things. Some of you may know Commissioner Sally Heyman. We kind of joke that we're the two Sallys, but we work from different parts of the country. She's a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and we get along just fine because that is a big commonality, that this is not a partisan issue. This is one that we all want to solve from all different angles. Brian Deloge, who's the second vice president of NACO, will be there in Miami. So we're heading around the country to show that this is not just a Colorado problem, it's not a Kansas problem, it's not just a Florida or California, it's all of our problems nationwide. So I look forward to all of you joining us in the Stepping Up program to reduce the number of folks with mental illness in our jails, passing resolutions. Thank you, Chairman Eilert, for your leadership here in Johnson County to help us make those right decisions, because the right decision is what's right for our communities nationwide. If we're going to reduce the number of folks that we're housing in our jails every day, and frankly putting our deputies who guard those inmates at risk as well, we're not mental health professionals. We need to figure out a different way to do it, and Stepping Up is the right way. Thank you for all of your partnerships. It's an honor to be here on behalf of National Association of Counties.
Well, a special thanks to those who have made comments today. You know, we are excited about this effort and about the many accomplishments we anticipate we will see together through Stepping Up with all of you as our partners. I'd like to take a moment to encourage other counties to join with us in this nationwide effort. Johnson County is part of a consortium that facilitates regional and cross-state responses to complex issues like Stepping Up. And again, I want to say a special thank you to those who have been involved for years, some like Howard for decades, in educating us, in supporting efforts to bring us to this point today and give us the opportunity for future successes. Our Criminal Justice Advisory Board, Sheriff Frank Denning, our Mental Health Board, our Mental Health Advisory Board, and all of those who have volunteered to make this effort and this program with the potential that exists possible. I also want to say thank you to our area public safety officials who have stepped up, become involved in training public safety officers to recognize situations where mental health professionals need to be involved, helping them to recognize that the criminal justice system may not be the avenue that needs to be pursued in this case. And the professionals who also step up and assist the officers in the co-responder program. It does take a community effort to make this possible. Thank you all very much for being here today, and thank you for your participation. Thank you very much.